I'm closing in a week and I haven't gotten the clear to close yet. Is this normal? I'll answer that question and more on this episode of your Homebuyer Guide podcast. Today was my first day at my new house. We closed and got keys a few weeks ago. The seller rented back for a few weeks. The seller has texted me saying something like, "Sorry, the house isn't spick and span. We're in our 80s and exhausted. I left some furniture to pay for someone to clean the cabinets." We showed up today to unload the U-Haul. There was no final walkthrough. Turns out that meant multiple closets still had junk in them. Some furniture was there, but only furniture that couldn't be sold, aka junk. What are my options? Can I request a cleaning payment, or am I stuck with the house as is? First, what I would suggest is look at the terms of your contract. What kind of condition is the home supposed to be left in? In the contract that we typically use in my area, it's broom swept. Now, it seems like your particular situation it's a little complicated. So you didn't have a final walkthrough and you did a rent back. If people aren't familiar with that, it's when you close on the home, but the seller stays in the home for a predetermined amount of time. They move out and then you move in. With these rent back or lease backs is what I've heard them referred to as well. You want to make sure you have a separate lease or rental agreement outside of your usual sales contract. In the agreement, it should spell out the terms of the lease, how much the renters will owe, when will they vacate the property, how much the deposit is, and what kind of condition the home is expected to be in. It seems like in your situation, some of that might have been missed. If you did have a lease agreement, look at that and see what it says. Also, if you're in this type of situation again, I think it makes sense to still have a final walkthrough before signing the closing documents. Even if the sellers aren't leaving immediately, you want to get an idea of the condition of the home. I would take a walkthrough video or pictures to have everything documented, so when the sellers or tenants they move out, you have proof of what the home looked like. In your situation, if you don't have any terms in the lease or your sales contract that addresses what condition the home needs to be in and what recourse there is, you may not have a lot of options. You could have your agent reach out to the listing agent to let them know what the situation is. You could see if the listing agent or maybe your real estate agent would be open to contributing to a cleaning fee. Obviously, I don't have all the information here, but I would just think that the real estate agents would have made sure that there was a lease agreement and that the home was left in the agreed upon condition. You could request a cleaning payment from the seller, but again, if you don't have anything in the contract or the lease that the property needs to be left in a certain condition, then you may not have much leverage in this situation. Also, and maybe I'm a softie, but the sellers are in their 80s, so I really wouldn't bother them, but without knowing the whole story, I understand why you're looking for the compensation. If you have any real estate questions for the podcast you want answered, send me an email. I'm supposed to be closing on my first house end of next week. I'm wondering if it's normal to not have my clear to close yet. I'm getting anxious. We've submitted absolutely everything they need. They keep telling us we're in really good shape and on track. I guess I just thought there would be more time between knowing we're all set and having our closing scheduled. Is this normal? What's the average time before closing to get your clear to close? Each situation is different, although this is very stressful. In my experience, it's pretty normal to not have the clear to close and you're closing next week. You usually get the clear to close within about 3 to 5 days before close. When you're getting close to closing time, you're basically in a queue for the underwriters. Since you're not closing until next week, everyone else that's closing before you is probably skipping you in the queue. It sounds like you have everything turned in and you're just waiting on the final look through of your documents, and then you'll get the clear to close. One key thing to keep an eye on is the closing disclosure, or CD. This is a document that needs to be sent to the buyers 3 days before closing. It's a federally mandated thing, so if you're supposed to close in 2 days, for instance, and you haven't received that CD, that tells me that your closing will probably be delayed. Now, I know it's really stressful when you're getting down to the wire. I would keep bothering your lender, have your agent reach out to the lender for an update. Keep in mind that at this point in the process, it's probably the underwriter that your lender's waiting on, so they're in the same boat doing the waiting game. Best of luck, and I hope you get your clear to close soon. My husband and I are purchasing our first home, townhouse. During the inspection, they found water damage and wood rot to the trusses for the roof, damaged insulation, damage to the roof, and some microbial growth. The HOA is responsible for the roof, but is very slow to respond to the issue, and due diligence ends on Tuesday. Our agent is pushing the seller for $6,000 at closing to cover repairs ourselves, but I'm hesitant. What are our options on how to proceed and have the seller and HOA sort out the issues prior to our closing? We're under a time crunch for the property that we currently rent. All right, we have a few moving parts here. First, let's talk about the HOA. This is common where the HOA can be slow to respond on these kinds of repairs, especially when we're talking about the roof. You didn't mention exactly what was causing the issue, but it's possible that the HOA could try to make an insurance claim on the roof. This can take a bit because an insurance adjuster needs to come out, assess the damage, then figure out what they're going to do from there. I've seen some HOAs and insurance adjusters kind of be in a standoff on who's going to pay for what. And because of this, it may take past your closing date before the roof is fixed. I'm assuming this might be why your agent is looking for closing costs. Another thing I'm curious of is if the HOA is responsible for the roof, would they also be responsible for the trusses for the roof? I'm just not sure. That might be good to get answered if you can. Now, I'm also curious about this $6,000 at closing. So obviously you had an inspection. I'm wondering if you had a contractor or similar tradesman come out to give an estimate, and that's how your agent landed on the $6,000 at closing. It sounds like there might be a few things to figure out here. So first, I would suggest extending the due diligence or inspection period. I'd extend it to at least a few days so you can get some more answers. If the seller doesn't want to extend the inspection period and you still haven't gotten the information back from the HOA, you might want to consider canceling the contract at that point. So this is what concerns me in this situation. First, if the roof isn't going to get fixed right away, if you go ahead and get all the other things fixed, won't it get messed up again if the roof isn't fixed? And when it comes to closing costs or getting the issue fixed, a lot of times I'll encourage my clients to get the closing costs so they can fix the issue themselves. It's really a case-by-case basis. If there's an issue where the home can keep on getting damaged, like a leak or a hole in the roof, then we want to get that fixed sooner than later. Also, you want to get a few estimates for the work to make sure the amount of money you're asking for closing costs will cover the work that needs to be done. Also, in some cases, if the home is in the current condition that it is, it may not appraise. I don't know exactly what's going on, why it's like that, but if an appraiser happened to see that, that could be an issue. Since it sounds like an attic and a roof, they probably won't, but in other cases, that might not appraise. If you're in a time crunch with your rental, you may want to either terminate the contract or extend your lease for another month if you're able to, and you still want to buy this home. You want to buy the home, the seller wants to sell the home, the real estate agents want to get paid. So you have the formula for this all to work out. Everyone just needs to come together and work together to make sure that they can accomplish the shared goal of getting this townhouse sold. I hope you're able to get it all worked out smoothly. I'm in the process of buying a house in California. My realtor's brokerage sent me a form to sign that says they'll charge me $300 as other commission at the closing. When I asked my realtor, he said it was an office transaction fee. He couldn't articulate properly what was the purpose other than that his firm maintains the client's record for 7 years. This fee was never discussed beforehand. The realtor is getting a full 3% commission. I never asked or expected any concession. Being a new home buyer, I felt trapped when this form was sprung at me face to face, and I signed the form, thereby agreeing to pay this random fee. Is this a legit fee? Technically, yes. Does it make sense? Not in my opinion. So a transaction fee is pretty common. Most brokerages charge some sort of transaction fee regardless if you're buying or selling. It's usually around $250 to $500. What does the money go to exactly? That's a great question. In my opinion, it's a way for brokerages to get more money in the transaction, and I'm sure it does pay for some sort of office fees, things like that. I'm sure there's a purpose. I just don't know exactly what it is. Transaction fees work differently at each brokerage. Sometimes it's the brokerage itself that charges the fee. Sometimes the broker charges the agent a fee for each transaction, and in turn, the agent will have the client pay the fee. So it is a legit fee. However, I really don't like how this was dealt with. If a realtor or brokerage is going to charge a transaction fee to the client, this needs to be communicated in the beginning. My brokerage charges me a transaction fee for each transaction I do. I don't pass that fee on to the client. I used to work for another brokerage, and that one required that the client pay a transaction fee. I never really liked that, so I would just pay the transaction fee out of my commission. really wasn't a big deal and it only seemed right. You're paying a bunch of money for a home. It's kind of an insult, in my opinion, to make someone pay for another fee. Now, other real estate agents, they can absolutely do it. It's their business. It's totally fine. But especially if the agent can't articulate exactly what the fee is for, yeah, I'd be kind of upset too. So a suggestion is you could ask for your real estate agent to pay for a 1-year home warranty for you. They're usually about like $400 to $500 to start. Sometimes agents can get a discount on them. So see if maybe your real estate agent will buy one for you. Ask them face to face and put them on the spot like he put you on the spot. If you're feeling spicy, you don't have to, right? Now they might say no, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Going forward, don't hesitate to ask questions and don't sign things right away if you're not comfortable. From what you're saying, the agent was unprofessional, in my opinion, by springing on another fee on you with no warning. For more podcasts, check out this playlist. Please email me your questions so I can answer them on the podcast. This podcast is for entertainment purposes and not legal advice. Thanks for tuning in.